What's going on, internet? It's me, the Masked Man, and today I want to talk about professional wrestling, and in particular, I want to talk about kayfabe and kayfabe being dead. Now, the inspiration for me making this video, I saw a video done by a YouTuber by the YouTube channel Wrestling with Regret. The guy who hosts the YouTube channel is a guy by the name of Brain Zane. I believe that he's a manager in pro wrestling, and he also does YouTube videos. And I really like his stuff. If you're a fan of pro wrestling commentators, if you're a fan of people who speak on pro wrestling, I think he'll be right up your alley. But when I saw his video, kayfabe in the 21st century, I couldn't disagree more with his conclusions about how kayfabe is still alive or still present in contemporary pro wrestling. Now, I like the fact that he gave examples of how kayfabe, was originated, how a promoter back in the 30s or the 20s came forward and exposed the business, and a single promoter and a group of promoters, the remaining promoters, they got together and they decided to protect the business, as it's called. And they decided that they were going to protect the integrity of the wrestling business, and that both in the ring and away from the ring, that they would present themselves and conduct themselves as if everything that they were doing was real, which is what kayfabe is. Kayfabe is, kayfabe is maintaining the lie, so to speak, or staying in the bit, as a comedian would say, or committing to the bit. Now, Brian Zane's conclusion was that kayfabe hasn't died, it's just evolved. It's just people have gotten to the point where they're too sophisticated, to buy that these guys really hate each other. There's been too many specials on professional wrestling to convince that anything that they're seeing is legitimate. That kayfabe today is simply about telling a good story in the ring. It's not about, behaving a certain way away from the ring. And he compared it to, other television shows. He compared it to, I can't remember what specific shows that he compared it to. I think he compared it to like a Game of Thrones. I remember that. But my response to that would be that what people always liked about professional wrestling, what they always liked, what made the fan base so large, is like he basically said that people are still watching wrestling even though the business has been exposed, even though people know it's fake, even though Vince McMahon came on television and revealed to everybody that it's a work. But my response to that would be, yeah, there are still fans of professional wrestling, but if you compare how many fans watch the product today to how much they have watched historically, or how much they've watched even in the last 10 years, there's kind of been a steady decline in the fan base. There's been a steady decline in the viewership, and that's not by accident. That's not coincidental. The reason that people are watching less, the reason that people are invested less, is because they are not telling good stories. They're not telling compelling stories in the ring. They're not They don't have good storylines. They don't have anything that's believable. And the excuse for why pro wrestling, is so lousy is the excuse that's given by the WWE, who is the big dog in the fight, is that, well, pro wrestling is not as good. Well, they don't say this, but the reason that they give for why pro wrestling isn't as good is, well, the fans don't know what they want. We push certain guys, but they have to rise up to the occasion. Well, in all actuality, what mainly attracted people to professional wrestling, even though there were people in their lives telling them that professional wrestling was fake and have been doing so for the past 70 years, is because what they presented, you could believe was real, and you could not distinguish what was real from what was fake. That's what people loved about professional wrestling. They may say, okay, that was fake, that was fake, that was fake, but that's real. And that is a part of what attracts people to professional wrestling. How, you can't distinguish like what's a work and what's a shoot, what's real and what's not. And when they become so intertwined, when you can't really tell, reality from fiction, you can't really tell whether or not these guys really like each other or really dislike each other, when you can't get a clear picture in your mind, that's good wrestling. That's when wrestling is doing its job. But wrestling isn't doing its job because they will undermine themselves on television. They will do things on television that tells you that this isn't real, that this is phony, that this is fake. Nobody comes out in the Big Bang Theory in the middle of an episode and say, hey, what was my line? What line? And that's the equivalent of how ridiculous WWE's storylines is. Like Dolph Ziggler, Lana, Rusev was one of the most convoluted, ridiculous, dumb, asinine storylines that has happened in professional wrestling in probably the last 10 years. Just mind-numbingly stupid. And the only reason that it ended when it did is because they came out in real life and said that they were engaged to each other, possibly to keep their relationship together. So if the WWE were being in KayFabe, if KayFabe were still alive, or if KayFabe had evolved, they would take the fact that Rusev and Lana were dating in real life and they would play with that. They would use something in the real world and they would tweak it so that you as a fan, you as a viewer, you don't know how much of this is actually real. It's mixing the real and the fake. It's getting you to, is getting you so involved in the show that you can't untangle the web. That's what makes pro wrestling different from everything else. That's what makes it special. And when you have pro wrestling, when you know everything you seeing on TV is scripted, every word is scripted, every move is choreographed, everything is planned out to the letter, it takes away from what draws people to the product. It takes away from what gets people excited to see it. So I just feel that KayFabe is something that needs to be brought back. Kayfabe is something that needs to be reinstituted into professional wrestling. People should carry their gimmicks away from the ring. People shouldn't post certain things on social media that contradict, that goes against their character in the ring. People shouldn't do certain interviews that goes against their character. They shouldn't be seen with certain people in real life who they're feuding with, and people are invested in their feud and they're hanging out together. Just from a marketing standpoint, you don't see Floyd Mayweather. You didn't see Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao eating dinner together, at a 5-star restaurant. You never saw that. Now, there was never, like, you probably don't believe that Floyd Mayweather hates Manny Pacquiao, do you? You don't believe that Floyd Mayweather wants to see Manny Pacquiao die a brutal death? Probably not. But just from a marketing standpoint, they understand, they instinctively know kayfabe. Even if we get along, let's pretend like we don't, to sell tickets. And because people don't buy into the tension, people don't buy into the story, because you have all of these other things in the real world that are contradicting what they're seeing on television, that are going against a show that's reality based. Wrestling is not 100% fake like a Game of Thrones, like a Big Bang Theory. It's not 100% fake like those, and it's not like a basketball and a football and a baseball. It's not 100% real either. It's not 100% real, and it's not 100% fake. It plays by rules that no other thing can really play by. It's its own entity, and to do it right, you have to do things in wrestling that you would not do in any other form of entertainment. That's like taking something that's made up and fictional and maintaining that lie outside of your work environment. If you are John Cena and your best friend is Randy Orton, if they're best friends, I wasn't thinking of him. I was thinking of that guy in the Shield with the hair that just got injured, but I can't recall his name right now. But if you two are best friends, you don't hang out when you're in a feud. You don't take photos together and post them on Instagram. You don't do that, because it undermines what you're doing in the ring, because this ain't football. You don't get to go out on the field and have people completely believe that you're actually trying to win. When you do stuff like that, people are like, well, these guys don't really have any grudge against each other. These guys really don't, there's really not any backstage politics going on. There's really not any ill will between them. They're good friends, and this is all just, bullshit. And you don't want your fans feeling like what they're watching is bullshit and pointless. So you have to protect your angles. You have to protect your storylines. You got to have better angles. You got to have better storylines. You got to have better matches. But in particular, you have to protect it on and off of television, on and off social media. You have to protect the business. But that was my little spiel. Let me know what you think. Check out Wrestling with Regret. He does great videos. I think he's going to be my alternative to WWE What Culture, because for some reason the guy over there has stopped making, the kind of videos that I went there, that I loved his channel for. And now he has a bunch of other people on his channel, and he's doing a whole lot of different shit that I have no interest in. So if you want to hear somebody with, an entertaining perspective on professional wrestling, check out Wrestling with Regret. Check out the video in particular and let me know what you think of his opinion versus mine. If there's anything in the media that you would like me to talk about, you can send me an email at themrmaskman@gmail.com. You can find me on Daily Motion, Facebook, and Twitter, all The Mr. Maskman. That is, rate the video, subscribe to my channel. That is all I have to say about this subject, and I will see you in the next video.